In heaven, everything is fine. In heaven, everything is fine. In heaven, you've got your good things, and you've got mine. Eagle Scout, Missoula, Montana. That is the entirety of David Lynch's bio whenever you search for him online. I first became aware of him in the early 1980s. In fact, it was about 1980, although I really didn't know it yet. And I saw his film, The Elephant Man, in theaters. It was a movie that I was very curious about. I was aware that it was based on a true story, that John Merrick was a real life figure. And I was a bit of a weird kid. I was not someone who just sat around all day and watched cartoons, even though I watched my share of those too. But I was the kid who wanted to go and see The Elephant Man, Gandhi, Amadeus, Passage to India. Um, I like the Aristocats and Rescuers and, all of the 70s, Disney stuff too. But there was always this kind of arty side to me, or something that wanted to see what else was out there. And my parents were very trepidatious about me seeing The Elephant Man because they were afraid I guess they were afraid it would frighten me in some fashion. But I understood, it is a movie. And even though it's based on something that really happened, what you are seeing on the screen is made up of, uh, is created by the filmmakers. And at that point in time, I'm not someone who really paid attention to who directed a film, or who wrote a movie, who is the cinematographer. I am watching a David Lynch film, but I don't know who David Lynch is. I am watching a movie photographed by Freddie Francis, but I don't know who Freddie Francis is. I am seeing Anthony Hopkins for the first time. But I'm watching the movie, and as those of you who have seen it know, that it has a very ambiguous beginning, of this woman who is, all right, I know it now, this is Merrick's mother giving birth to him, and it is a difficult birth. That or she is also being trampled by elephants. I am still not sure. You know, but that's the way that I looked at it at the time. Now, The Elephant Man would go on to be nominated for 8 Academy Awards, including Best Director for Mr. Lynch. And I never heard of him again, really, until Dune. And as we know, Dune is a movie that has a history to it. It was kind of a difficult production. There are several different cuts of it. It's a movie that David Lynch was never very happy with. Dune is like a 4-letter word to him. Um, but speaking as someone who grew up on the Star Wars films, and he was originally approached to direct Return of the Jedi. And I always wondered what his version of the movie would have been. But at the same time, I'm glad that he didn't do it. Because for whatever issues he may have had, or we as moviegoers might have had with Dune, Dune is the one that sticks out in my mind. Dune is the one that I go back and watch more than I ever did Return of the Jedi. His film was my gateway into the world that Frank Herbert created. That made me a lifelong fan. That makes me go back and watch the book and read the books, watch the films. I haven't seen Dune Prophecy yet. I'm hearing mixed things. I'm very curious about that, though. Because every iteration of Dune, I compare using his film as the standard, regardless, again, of what you might think of the final product. And that's what film is supposed to do. It is supposed to entertain you. It is supposed to show you different worlds. And David Lynch did that. And he never preached to you. It was never about agenda. He wasn't trying to make you think a certain way. His films asked questions, and you had to come up with the answers. So with Dune, I became aware of who David Lynch was. And my realizing, oh, he's the man who directed The Elephant Man. And I also came to realize a little bit later on that I had also seen a couple of his short films. Again, never realizing that he directed them. There's one in particular that always stuck in my mind called The Alphabet, which is this very kind of rather creepy little short film. It's just a few minutes long. And if you see There is a DVD out there, the short films of David Lynch. I have a copy of it, and I do recommend it. I really recommend all of his movies, to be honest. I never claimed to understand everything in his movies. I don't think that you're necessarily meant to. I think he wanted us to have our own takeaway. And then he made movies that are a little bit, in my opinion, a little bit more straightforward. Dune, for all the craziness in it, is pretty straightforward. I think Blue Velvet's a pretty straightforward narrative. And Blue Velvet was a movie that I did not see I didn't see it right away. Because, again, my parents were always very careful about what I saw. And because of kind of the general subject matter of that movie, they did not allow me to watch it for quite some time. So it wasn't until I didn't see it until after Twin Peaks had been made, the ABC version, and kind of around that time. And that's when I saw Blue Velvet straight through, and I understood why they felt that I shouldn't, because there were some graphic scenes in it. I don't want to go. I don't know how much detail YouTube will allow me to go into, but it goes into some dark places. But still a very good film. And Blue Velvet was a movie that showed me what you could do with film. He changed a way that I looked at film. He did, and then eventually Tarantino did with Pulp Fiction. Those were the two movies that showed me you could do more. And I started to gravitate towards independent film because of that. Now, moving on from Blue Velvet, you go to of course, Twin Peaks, which is a show I'm obviously very much a fan of. I do a show about it here on my channel called Live from Sparkwood 21. I co-host that show with Troy Pacelli, Nutters Network, and Aged Boomer. Boomer is in the chat with us right now. Hello, Boomer. And we do that show Tuesday nights. This week, we're going to be starting at about 8 p.m., so we're a half hour earlier. Now, when I first saw an ad for Twin Peaks, I really didn't know what it was, really, because it really didn't tell you what the plot was going to be. You didn't know. It was just these little quirky little snippets of dialogue, little pieces of scenes. But I go, oh, okay, I recognize some of the people here. Oh, there's Kyle MacLachlan. He was in Dune, which was the first time I saw him was Dune. And oh, Michael Ontkean, I know him. Okay. Hey, Joan Chen. Hey, she's cute. Okay, there she is. All right. I like this so far. All right. I know. Hey, I know everybody here. Okay. But still, I didn't know what the show was about. So the marketing for it at the beginning was fantastic, because in the way that it told you everything but told you nothing. So I watched the pilot film. And was immediately pulled in to the pacing of it, which was this very deliberate pacing. The locations, Snoqualmie Falls, Washington. You know, I liked the characters right away, even the evil ones. You know, they were all very fascinating. It was very well written, and I was pulled into this mystery because I grew up with mysteries. You know, my father used to watch this show on PBS at the time called Mystery, which would, you had, the Jeremy Brett Sherlock Holmes, and you know, you had Rumpola the Bailey, you had Dalgleish, Maigret, you had them all because they made shows out of all of those detective stories. And I would watch that with my dad, and I became a fan, in particular of Sherlock Holmes. Um, Now, Kyle MacLachlan's character, Agent Cooper, is very much a Sherlock Holmes, especially in the first couple of seasons. With Sheriff Truman basically becoming his Watson. So I looked at it on that basis, that I was seeing a version of Sherlock Holmes. This guy meticulously, seeing the clues. What does this mean? What do I want them to mean? And meanwhile, you were also getting introduced to these, very quirky characters. You know, each of them had their own story. Each of them fit in some fashion. Now, the network, ABC at that time, didn't quite know what they had. I think they wanted it to be kind of a mystery of the week kind of show, and it's not that. It was this very deliberately paced. We weren't supposed to find out who the killer was initially. And when I watched the show, especially when we got to the episode with Cooper's dream sequence, right at the end, this the sequence that felt like it was broadcast live from hell, and there were a couple of moments like that in the show. I am not watching something made in this dimension. I'm watching something made in a hell realm, and I'm going to get infected by it. And in a sense, I did, but in a good way, because I did something that I hadn't really done before or really since. And that was wanting to dress like a character. Quentin Tarantino, going back to him for a second, he once said in an interview that the biggest compliment you can give to a character in a film is wanting to dress like the guy. So I guess I must have been a fan of Agent Cooper because I would dress like him. I would wear. There were days where I would wear suits. I would put on the overcoat. I slicked my hair back, and there was a good year and a half there where how I was. You know? Um, so yeah, to call me a super fan of that show would be a truism. But, the network stepped in and, well, you've got this mystery, you've set it up, now you gotta solve it. And in season 2, they did. And then you have to understand, to me, I thought, "Okay, end of story. So why were we still here?" And I didn't come to really appreciate season 2, the second half of season 2. I think it really kinda starts to come back into its own in the last few episodes. But there was a point there in season 2 where I had some issues. And at that point, you didn't have David Lynch on the set because he was off, doing, Wild at Heart, which is basically the closest that he would come to do, Wizard of Oz. You watch that movie, it's Wizard of Oz. A very, a dark version of it, but, it's David Lynch's The Wizard of Oz. Watch that movie. All right. There's a good witch who appears to Nicolas Cage at the end of the movie. The villain of the film dies from melting. It's Wizard of Oz. Give it up. But going back to Twin Peaks for the moment, there's something that made season 2 finally click for me. And that was when Mr. Lynch said that Mulholland Drive and Twin Peaks are in the same universe. Which was the intent, was to spin off Sherilyn Fenn's character, Audrey Horne, and bring her into Hollywood, and she goes off and has her own adventures. That was the original idea, was that Mulholland Drive was supposed to be a television series. That was supposed to be a spin-off of Twin Peaks. Although, again, at the time, I knew it was supposed to be a series, but I didn't know that Audrey was supposed to be involved. So, once that became clear, it made me recontextualize season 2 and make me think that the storylines that they took that appeared at that point to be tangents really weren't. They were setting up Mulholland Drive. And Mulholland Drive on its own is a real brain teaser of a movie. I have my own theories of what's going on in the film. Um, it might not be a straightforward narrative to some people, but I think it makes perfect sense. And he got his second Best Director nomination for Mulholland Drive. And Naomi Watts should have been nominated. I will die on that hill. That's one of the great Oscar snubs, I think. And she has said since then, she was in some real dire straits in her life before she got that film. And she kind of says, hey, David Lynch kind of saved my life, by casting me. So it again was this. I kind of call Mulholland Drive the first Me Too movie, because it really is his view of Hollywood. It's his view of working with studios. It's his view on how you can kind of lose your soul if you're not careful. It's a cautionary tale in its own way. But again, this movie that I became very fascinated by, you know, ex, you know, oh, you like that movie just because of the ones. No, although I didn't mind it, but I think it works on a number of different levels. There's again a movie asking the questions, and you supply the answers. You're not being spoon-fed information at the same time you're not being force-fed it either. Now, when you get to Lost Highway, which I feel is very much in the world of Mulholland Drive. I think there are definitely parallels, between both. Is she the same girl? Are they different girls? I don't know. You know, how is Robert Blake's character able to be in two places at once? How do Bill Pullman and Balthazar Getty switch places? I don't know. Again, a movie where I have my own theories about what's happening. But it was the one that was very much to me kind of I don't get it. But I'm enjoying it enough that I can recommend it. Wild at Heart was a little bit more, even though I got the Wizard of Oz motif. That movie was, for whatever reason, a little harder for me to get into. I think because I was expecting it to be sort of Twin Peaks the film until we eventually got Twin Peaks the film, But again, Lynch, keeping you guessing. Ask the questions, seek out your own answers. Now, The Lost Highway is a great soundtrack too. I mean, all of his films have a terrific soundtrack. Even the movie that I didn't mention earlier, which was Eraserhead. And Eraserhead was a movie that I always heard of, but again, didn't see for many years because it wasn't readily available. It wasn't like it was like, it's not the Beastmaster. It's not running on TBS on a loop. It's not Forced Vengeance. You got to go and find this thing. And eventually I found a DVD and I sat down and I watched a film and I came away from it wondering, what the hell did I just watch? But not in that bad way of, oh, that was terrible. What the hell did I just watch? Again, being very fascinated with it, with the themes, with the way it's paced, with the way it's put together. Again, this movie that has scenes that feels like it's being broadcast live from hell, but you get it. And it's different. And it's not preaching at you, and that's what movies are supposed to do. I was never not entertained watching one of his movies. I recommend all of them. And I haven't even seen Inland Empire yet. Not straight through. Now I'm going to. But go and seek out his films. Not just that. Go and seek out his music. Go back and listen to his albums. The Big Dream is fantastic. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. Go and see the collaborations that he did with Angelo Badalamenti, with Julie Cruz. And they're all together. And Harry Dean Stanton is up there with him too. That's, oh man. That's a round table I want to sit in on. It really would be. He wrote several books. I actually just finished listening to one on Audible that he narrates. This man was a true artist who made me rethink how I look at film, how I look at television, how I look at music, how I look at art itself. We did not deserve this man, but we got him. He was there at the beginning with me. Now he's gone. But I look at it as he's scouting ahead. And when we get there, he'll have the fire ready. And he'll have the coffee ready. And a heavenly slice of apple pie. Kyle MacLachlan wrote something on Facebook, a tribute. And I want to read that off right now. Because he says it better than I ever could. Now, I didn't always understand what we were making. Sometimes I'd get a sense of it, and then, like on a breeze, it was gone. Other times it seemed to exist on a plane that I wanted to reach but couldn't quite articulate. But eventually I realized it didn't matter. Though my lifelong friend, collaborator, and mentor, David Lynch, was as eloquent as anyone I'd ever met and a brilliant writer, he was not necessarily a word person. I think he just found them insufficient, one-dimensional, not up to the job. It's why he never wanted to explain his work. He wasn't trying to be surly or obtuse. That was never David's way. He loved connecting with people, meeting them where they were, sharing time or space or consciousness. It's just that explaining his art after the fact seemed antithetical to the very point of making it. I sat in on interviews and on panels next to him, and I could see him struggling with questions about what things meant. Often I felt compelled to pick up the baton and talk in circles for a bit until the questioner moved on. David knew that anything he said would be putting his thumb on the scale, and he wanted people to experience his work on their own and take away what they wished. If words were sufficient, why would he have spent the effort and the time and the millions of dollars making it? Wouldn't words have been so much easier? David didn't fully trust words because they pinned the idea in place. They were a one-way channel that didn't allow for the receiver, and he was all about the receiver. This distrust of words created a unique challenge for him on set, as a director's job is all about communication, with the producers, the executives, the craftspeople, and, of course, the actors. David got around this by inventing his own peculiar way of talking to actors. I wonder if that's why he liked to work with the same ones: me, Laura Dern, Jack Nance, Harry Dean Stanton, Naomi Watts. We understood his secret language. Because David and I had a vaguely similar look, comparable childhoods, and Northwest roots, I think he found it natural to channel ideas through me. Sometimes it was as though I was a creation of his mind. I don't just mean Jeffrey Beaumont or Special Agent Dale Cooper or David Lynch creations. I mean Kyle MacLachlan too. This version of me doesn't exist without him. As for the secret language, he'd give me directions like more wind or think Elvis. Other times after a take, he'd come stand next to me and we'd both look out into the distance and somehow, I can't explain it, commune in that quiet space. I received him, I knew what he wanted, and he knew that I knew. How could words possibly do justice to an experience like that? It's why David was not just a filmmaker, he was a painter, a musician, a sculptor, and a visual artist, languageless mediums. When you're outside language, you're in the realm of feeling, the unconscious waves. That was David's world, because there's room for other people. As the listeners, the audience, the other end of the line, to bring some of themselves. To David, what you thought mattered too. With his actors, he didn't want to give straight direction because he saw us as artists. And he knew the process of getting there was part and parcel of the art. With his audience, he was the same way. He valued you as a unique individual, to make of it what you wished. He was drawn to mystery because he understood mystery as a conversation, a collision of differences, interpretations, perspectives, not a message sent down from an all-knowing source. A mystery leaves room for other people to get in there. It's two-way communication. When David was a kid, his mother wouldn't let him use coloring books because she thought they would kill his creativity. I think of that as the David Lynch origin story. He was given a world without lines and went about making his own. It has been one of the greatest pleasures of my life to be included inside those lines. I've long marveled at the trust David had in me, from my first screen test in 1983, when I froze delivering a line directly to camera, to hiring me as the lead on his very next film, Blue Velvet. After Dune landed with a thud, to building a TV series around me, Twin Peaks, that premiered when I was 31 years old and not particularly well known, to escorting me into a secretive, windowless room in 2015 and handing me the 500-page script for Twin Peaks: The Return, in which he asked me to play 3 distinct roles, 2 of which were light years outside my wheelhouse. In our work together, he entrusted me with carrying these things in his mind out into the world to bring them life. So on screen, I might have been his avatar, but he was also mine. He was the floating presence on my shoulder that told me I could do it. I was willing to follow him anywhere because joining him on the journey of discovery, searching, and finding together was the whole point. I stepped out into the unknown because I knew David was floating out there with me. It's like Agent Cooper says to Sheriff Truman in Twin Peaks. I have no idea where this will lead us, but I have a definite feeling it will be a place both wonderful and strange. I will miss my dear friend. He has made my world, all of our worlds, both wonderful and strange. Well, he said it better than I ever could. And like every David Lynch fan, this has not been an easy week. We knew he was ill, so we knew this was coming, just not that it would be this soon. I always thought he had another film left in him. I always thought maybe, just maybe, there would be another season of Twin Peaks. But I think he kind of threw down the gauntlet. I don't think he would want us to mourn him for too long a length of time. I think he would want us to go out and create. He certainly encouraged me. He changed the way I looked at film, television, music, books, art, and the world. And I'm going to miss him. And I wish I had that chance to meet him. But in a way, I feel like I did. Hello to everyone there in the chat. I'm not ignoring you. I just wanted to make sure I got all of that out. And I do want to thank everybody who is currently watching along on X. I can't see you, but I know that you're there. I want to say hello to everybody here in the live chat. FKHC 2005, sometimes known as Tim. Good to see you, sir. Faithful Blue Wrench channel member. Connie Cleary, watch out for her second channel. Fluff Chick Productions. Birdwoman of YouTube, Connie Cleary. Channel member JPRPH1. Big Al Presents. D. Penzak. Aged Boomer. His show, Geeky Geezers, will be starting here in about 12 minutes from now. Stay to the end of this broadcast, and you will be Redirected. You can also see Boomer this upcoming Tuesday night at 8, along with me, Troy Pacelli, and Netters Network, as we continue our tribute to the late, great David Lynch on Live from Sparkwood in 21, our Twin Peaks retrospective series. All right. Thank you to Geek Flag with Nate Knows for the $2 super chat. I can hear you perfectly. And I hear you too. The tired midnight blogger himself, Curtis Selby. Not just my brother in arms, but my actual brother, Lee Arvin. So what you're saying is when you watch David Lynch's Dune, your sleeper was awakened. Very much so, yes. Yes, a movie I didn't go into detail about the straight story, which was a G-rated Disney film that David Lynch directed. It is also based on a true story. Richard Farnsworth is in that film. He was Oscar nominated for it. So is Sissy Spacek. Harry Dean Stanton has a cameo. I highly recommend it. Kind of a hard to find film, but well worth seeing. Curtis says, I used to dress like Adrian Paul from Highlander. Right on. Nate with another $2 super chat and a damn fine cup of coffee. Okay. And hello to DJ Play Nice. Got to roll out. Y'all be safe. Have fun. Take care of your crew and rock. Right on. Curtis says, sorry I got to know about him so late. So glad I got to know about him with this community. Thanks, Stephen. Well, you're very welcome. That's one of the points of my channel is to bring to you good entertainment that maybe you weren't as familiar with. All right. Like I said, I do want to remind everyone that right after this show is over, you will be redirected to Boomer's channel for Geeky Geezers. Let me do that right now. While I'm doing that, I would also like to remind everyone that my midnight show is returning tonight under a new title of Reserved Seats. I will be joined tonight by Spin's Corner as my first guest of the new iteration of my midnight program. We're going to be talking about the awards season, or lack thereof, the state of the entertainment industry in general at present, and of course we're going to be discussing the origins of her channel as well. So stay tuned. 12:05 a.m. Eastern, 11:05 Central. Reserved seats with special guest Sin's Corner. Hello to the Clued channel. Salute to you as well, sir. All right. So that is the show for this evening. I want to thank everyone in the live chat. I want to thank everyone following along on X. I can't see you, but I know that you're there. Stay tuned for Geeky Geezers. And of course, stay with me Tuesday for Reserved Seats tonight, 12:05 a.m. Eastern, 11:05 Central. Live from Sparkwood in 21 at a special time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, follow me over to 32 Flavors of Nick Weiser for Toxic Tuesday. I will be on the panel. this week's movie, The Equalizer 3. I would also like to remind everybody that I will be on Off the Covers channel for Thirsty Thursdays this Thursday at 7 p.m. But before that, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, I am going to be joining Outlaw Bill for Action Theater, and we are going to be watching the first Tom Cruise Jack Reacher film. So stay tuned for that. And also, of course, catch up with Sin and myself, along with Off the Cover and Kyle Corwith for the Mystery Movie Night broadcast. That will be Tuesday the 28th at 7 p.m. And also join me 8 p.m. on the 31st, where I will rejoin Big Al Presents for Films with Friends. And we are going to be watching 1954's giant ant movie, Them. In heaven, everything is fine. Mr. Lynch, we salute you. Rest in peace, sir. From HQ and all points north, south, east, west, and beyond, good night. Take care. Stay strong. Be safe and healthy, because this is how we win.